And good afternoon, producer Susan. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was great, Jersey Joe. How was yours?
I'm good, thanks. Had some family come over, and you traveled, right? Did you make it home okay?
Yep, made it to New Jersey.
Made it to New Jersey. Oh, good. Uh, I'm glad I wasn't on the highway. Better you than me. All right.
And we
Uh,
had our first snow squall this afternoon.
great. Oh, and Penn State played. And I understand they won. They just kicked butt.
It was a blowout.
42 nothing.
Yep,
What
yep.
was that? 10-2 for the year so far.
11-2, I believe.
11-2. They got
But
one
the,
game.
but the big game though was the Ohio State Michigan game on Saturday.
And Michigan took that one, right?
Yep. So next week I'll be rooting for Iowa. Go Iowa.
All right. And does Penn State play next week?
Nope. This is the playoff. The
Okay.
division. This is the Big Ten championship. This is Iowa and Michigan.
All right. But Penn State's going to have a bowl game. We just don't know which bowl game, right?
Yep. Yep.
All right. Good. All right. You want to see what's happening this week? Or it was a slow week over Thanksgiving. So you want to hear what happened? We may run a little short today.
Yeah. What's on the agenda?
All right. Well, today's the 28th of November. It's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. It's the situation with Jerzee Joe, news and perspective you won't hear on TV. Our quote of the week, actually, this week is a plural. It's two related quotes. One is from Albert Einstein on evil men and the destruction of the world. And there's a related quote that's often attributed to Edmund Burke on what is necessary for evil to triumph in this world. So we'll talk about how those two quotes are related. In our stupidest thing I've heard all week, we'll tell you how the Colorado State legislature has decided that they're going to socialize tax refunds to the taxpayers of their state. And I'll explain what socializing a tax refund means. How would you like to get the same refund as everybody else, regardless of how much you paid and how much they didn't pay? Do you think that'd be fair?
No, not at all.
Well, that's what the Democrat legislature in Colorado is doing. I'm going to read a very controversial op-ed opinion editorial piece on why one writer believes that it wasn't just the Jews who died in the Holocaust of World War II, but the rest of why he believes the rest of Europe is dying as well as a result. Very controversial, very biased, but I think there's some truth to it, so I think it's worth reading. We'll tell you about a new New York state law that has women suing famous people for things that may or may not have happened 30 years ago. Have you heard about any of these lawsuits, P. Diddy Combs and all these famous people?
Yeah, there was one against the mayor just last week, right?
And we're going to talk about the mayor in particular, but yeah, a whole bunch of people are getting sued for things that may or may not have happened 30 years ago. We'll share with you a quick calculation on the return on investment would have been if Congress had approved that $7 billion that Trump asked for to complete the rest of the border wall. So we'll talk about what not spending that $7 billion has cost us, and we'll do a quick return on investment calculation. I think you may have heard about the story because it involved a dog, and I know you're a dog owner, but you heard about the dog that stayed by the body of its owner after he died of a heart attack while hiking in the Colorado wilderness. You heard that story, right?
Yep.
Well, we're going to tell you how long the dog stayed with his body, and we'll ask you if you think your dog would have stayed with you that long. And finally, our taxpayer relief shot was a Thanksgiving. It came to us from Philadelphia, where some thug at 7 o'clock in the evening decided it'd be a good idea to break into a high-rise apartment at 7 o'clock in the evening on Thanksgiving. Doesn't sound like the best time to try to break into an apartment, does it?
Nope.
All right. Well, here are two quotes. The one that's often attributed to the philosopher Edmund Burke, English philosopher Edmund Burke, was it's misquoted, by the way. They're not really sure, but he said, all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Have you ever heard that one?
I don't think I have heard that one.
But there's a lot of truth to it, right? All that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. I think that's really true. You know, you sit back, I mean, look, people sit back and watched Hitler and they did nothing. And that's all that, the same thing. And, Idi Amin and some of these warlords in the Congo, people just sit back and let them do what they want to do, and then evil triumphs. But here's an actual quote by Albert Einstein. And remember, he was involved in the development of the atomic bomb, along with Oppenheimer. And he said, "The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them and do nothing. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I think those two are closely related. That is the same sentiment that when you see evil, people have an obligation. And, you can take that on the country level, national level, city level, even a personal level. If you see somebody doing evil, you need to step up. Too many people just close their eyes and walk by. It's not me. I'm not involved, and they just step by. When I see if I see evil and I can do something about it, I will absolutely step in.
Hmm.
So anyway, that's the two quotes on evil, and I think they're closely related, and I think they're both very, very true. All right, you want to talk about socializing tax refunds?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, you ever heard of something called Tabor?
No, I don't think I have.
Colorado 30 years ago passed an amendment to the Constitution called the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, which says that the state cannot increase taxes without a vote of the people agreeing to have their taxes increased.
Mhm.
That's a way to rein in government spending. And part of that same Tabor amendment also specifies that if the state inadvertently collects more taxes than they are entitled to, Tabor has an adjustment provision that says, hey, based upon the growth of the population and inflation, taxes can increase, but if they increase by more than this equation, which is the increase in the percentage of the number of people plus inflation, you have to refund the amount back to people. And in the past, they had this sliding scale. If you made less than $50,000, you got $400, and if you made between 50 and 90, you got $600, and 90 to 130. It was up and up and up all the way up to like $1,800. Well, now the state legislature has said, yeah, okay, yeah, we know we have to give you this money back. We're really not happy about it. But rather than do this sliding scale, Tabor doesn't specify how we have to give the money back. So we're going to give everybody $900. So even if you only paid $500 in state income taxes, you're going to get a $900 Tabor refund. And if you were somebody who paid by the way, the Colorado tax rate is 4.4%. So if you're a married couple, you're both professionals, and you have a taxable income of $100,000, you paid $4,400 in state taxes last year. Well, you're only getting $900 back. You're going to get the same refund as somebody who only paid $800 in taxes last year. In fact, the person who only paid $800 in taxes is going to be a net negative taxpayer after their $900 refund. So that's how you socialize a tax refund. Everybody gets the same. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's not right. And I've also heard, and I think Colorado is guilty of this, so you mentioned about not being able to raise the taxes, but a way around that is increasing fees.
Yeah, they call everything a fee. Well, we're going to add this fee, that fee. We're going to double the amount of the fee to register your car. We're going to triple this fee. There's nothing as devious and creative as a Democrat legislator trying to raise tax money. So yes, everything now in Colorado is a fee. You want to license your pet? There's a fee. You want to anyway. It's just ridiculous the extent and in one case they broke some fee up into 12 different individual fees, because there's also a segment Tabor that if any single fee were to generate revenue in excess of some threshold, that would fall under Tabor. So Colorado broke up this one fee into like six different pieces of legislation, so that collectively, even though collectively it exceeded the Tabor limit, they were able to pass it as just legislative fees.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you ready to hear a very, very controversial and admittedly biased perspective on what's happening in Europe?
What's happening in Europe?
Well, this is, again, one man's opinion. The following is a copy of an article by the Spanish writer Sebastian Rodriguez, and it was published in a Spanish newspaper. And it doesn't take much imagination to extrapolate the message to what he's saying about Spain to the rest of Europe, and possibly even the rest of the world. And here's his letter, op-ed opinion piece. He said, I walked down the streets in Barcelona and suddenly discovered a terrible truth. Europe, it was all of Europe that died in Auschwitz. We killed 6 million Jews and replaced them with 20 million Muslims over the past 4 decades. In Auschwitz, we burned a group of people who represented culture, thought, creativity, and talent. The contribution of today's Jewish people is felt in all areas of life: science, art, international trade, and above all, the conscience of the world. Look at any donors board at any symphony, art museum, theater, art gallery, science center, etc., and you will see many, many Jewish surnames. These are the people who were burned. Of the 6 million who died, how many would have grown up to be gifted musicians, doctors, artists, or philanthropists? And under the pretense of tolerance, and because we wanted to prove to ourselves that we were cured of the diseases of racism and bigotry, Europe opened our gates to 20 million Muslims who brought us religious extremism and lack of tolerance, crime, poverty, and due to an unwillingness to work and support their families with pride. They have blown up our trains and turned our beautiful Spanish cities into third world, drowning in filth and crime. Shut up in apartments, they receive free money from the government. And while there, they plan the murder and destruction of their naive hosts. And thus, in our misery, we have exchanged culture for fanatical hatred, creative skill for destructive skills, intelligence for backwardness and superstition. We have exchanged the pursuit of peace of the Jews of Europe and their challenge for a better future for their children, their determined clinging to life because life is holy. We've exchanged that for those who pursue death, for people consumed by their desire for death themselves and for others, for our children and their own. And as an example, recently the UK debated whether or not to remove the Holocaust from its school curriculum because it, quote, offends the Muslim population, which claims it never occurred. Now, they have not removed it as yet. However, this is frightening portent of the fear that is gripping the world and how easily each country is giving into it. It is now approximately 70 years after the Second World War in Europe. Now more than ever, with Iran among others claiming the Holocaust was a myth, it is imperative to make sure the world never forgets. Any reaction to that very inflammatory piece?
Yeah, and this has come up on a couple of different instances, but you can't erase history. You can't remove history.
But in the UK, if they were to take it out of the school curriculum and stop teaching that the Holocaust existed, people could, kids could grow up not knowing about the Holocaust.
And I haven't yet had the privilege, the opportunity to go to the new, I don't know how new it is now. I think it's maybe 5 years old now, the Holocaust Museum in DC, but I've heard it's quite emotional to go down there.
Right. And by the way, I when he made this in reading his comments about the contributions Jewish people is felt in all areas of life, he talked about science, art, trade, medicine. I actually did a little research, and this has astounded me. And I don't know whether it's culture, genetics, whatever, but I was looking at the comparison between Nobel Prize winners of Jewish descent and Muslim descent. And first of all, do you know how many people of Jewish descent have been Nobel Prize winners? You want to take a guess?
I think it's pretty high.
Yeah, it is very high. You want to guess how high it is?
50%.
Yeah, actually, in some cases greater, but in the total number is 184 of Nobel Prize winners were of Jewish descent. And then I looked, and over the same time period, I remember 184. Do you know how many are of Muslim descent? You want to take a guess?
10%.
60, well, way less, about 5%, 16 in total. So the number of Jewish recipients of Jewish heritage of Nobel outnumber Muslim recipients by more than 10 to 1. And here's even more astounding. And most of the Muslim ones were in soft things like peace and economics and literature. In terms of the things that truly benefit society, like chemistry, physics, and medicine, the total was 3: 2 in chemistry, 1 in physics, and 0 in medicine. By comparison, when we look at the Jewish contributors in those, what I call the hard sciences that have global impact, Nobel Prizes in medicine, 59. Nobel Prizes in physics, 56. Nobel Prizes in chemistry, 36. That's 137 to 3. Imagine that, 137-3. And let's talk about who they were. You ever have a Bear aspirin?
Yep.
Bear was Jewish. Albert Einstein, you ever heard that name?
Oh, of course, everybody has, right?
Ever heard the name Jonas Salk?
I don't think so.
The polio vaccine?
Oh, yeah.
Jonas Salk, polio vaccine. Niels Bohr, the physicist. Richard Feynman, the physicist, who we've quoted. We've used Richard Feynman in our quote of the week. Richard Feynman, the physicist. Milton Friedman, the economist. We've quoted him more than once on this podcast. Saul Permuter, another physicist, Nobel winning for it. And Paul Ehrlich. Ever heard Paul Ehrlich and the magic bullet?
I feel like I have heard that name.
He's kind of like the father of vaccines. And his first vaccine was for syphilis. But he's basically credited with founding the science of vaccinations. And how many people would have died of syphilis was it not for his discovery of a cure for syphilis? Okay. So those are just some names that you realize. And I compare that to the contributions that, again, I'm not trying to demean people of Muslim, because there are some very bright, very altruistic people of Muslim heritage. But as a culture, and I don't know what the difference is, again, whether it's cultural, genetic, but for some reason, throughout the ages, the Jewish people have always excelled in the areas of science, medicine, physics, chemistry. And I just don't know what it is about. Maybe it's the focus on the religion. And any thoughts why the Muslim?
I don't know. I mean, although I wouldn't, I mean, you refer to them as hard and soft, but it's more, I would prefer to, the STEM majors versus the non-STEM majors, which create balance. Right. I think those other Nobel Prizes winners are just as important to create balance in our world, but I don't know. And I know a lot of great Muslim people that they have some very, what's the word am I looking for?
Accomplished and
even with the religion that makes them, because of their devoutness towards the religion, make them such wholehearted people.
Right. And by the way, I didn't mean to say that Jews don't make contributions to what I call the soft. They between economics and peace prizes, Jews also had 47 Nobel prizes in literature and peace. So literature, economics, and peace. They also had 47. So it isn't just medicine, physics, and chemistry. So there are no slouches there when it comes to literature, economics, and peace either. But for some reason, and again, maybe somebody can study, but when you look at 16 versus 184 in terms of Nobel Award winners, there's something underlying the two cultures, and I don't know what it is. But to his point, given the track record of Jews being responsible for the development of truly life-changing, life-altering discoveries, you have to wonder how many of those potential life-altering discoveries died at Auschwitz or were delayed a decade or more because of Auschwitz. I think he makes a valid point. So anyway, that's again, you can take that for what it's worth. I'm just saying it was a very radical, biased perspective, but you have to admit there was some truth in it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Again, and Europe to this day is being flooded with people fleeing places like Syria and Lebanon, and they're coming in as refugees, and they're basically few, if any, have marketable skills, or if they do have marketable skills, since Europe is saying, we will house you, we will feed you. You've heard about the no-go zones in Paris, right?
Oh, no, I haven't heard that.
Well, if anybody's you might want to research this after anybody listening. In Paris, there are Muslim enclaves, which are 100% Muslim neighborhoods, where they're basically practicing their own Sharia law. They have their own markets. The police won't even go there. Well, first of all, they never get any calls because because in those neighborhoods, the Muslims basically act as their own police force, and it's dangerous to even go there. So, just Google Paris no-go zones. There are Muslim neighborhoods where even the police won't enter. So, because they become a mini country unto themselves. There are Paris neighborhoods that are basically like their own little country now. Similar.
And you see that though across the world, especially in the United States, about these different like neighborhoods, like Chinatown, for example, where they don't talk to outsiders, including the police. They're very handle things themselves.
Well, except I think a Chinese shopkeeper would call the police if somebody came in and tried to rob him, particularly if the person robbing him wasn't Chinese. in the no-go zones in Paris, they basically administer their own justice. And by the way, so for instance, if a boy defiles the daughter of somebody in one of those neighborhoods, his dead body will be found on the street the next day. But nobody will know anything about how he was killed, even though everybody knows exactly why he was killed.
But a lot of these deep cultural neighborhoods, they police themselves and take matters into their own hands.
No, seriously, in those no-go zones, if a young man defiles or rapes, even if it's consensual, if he has sex with the daughter of somebody who is not his wife, he will be found dead in the street, and there won't be anybody who knows anything about how he died, even though everybody knows exactly why he died and who killed him. It was the father of the girl. So that's the way it is. All right. You want to move on, or you want to stay with that for a while?
Yeah, no, let's move on.
All right. So a year ago, New York State passed a law suspending the statute of limitations for survivors of alleged sexual abuse or assault, giving them exactly a 1-year window that ended on November 24th. They said, okay, no matter what happened, when it happened, we all know about the statute of limitations, right? You have exactly 365 days to bring a lawsuit against somebody who may have sexually abused you at any time in your entire life, no matter how long ago that happened. So far, a bunch of, singers, rap singers, actors, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs. Anyway, the most recent one was the day before the window slammed shut. A woman claimed that New York City Mayor Eric Adams is claiming that he sexually abused her in 1993, which was 30 years ago, when he was a rookie police officer and she was an employee of the city of New York. Now, is this the first lawsuit seeking damages that this woman has ever filed? You want to take a guess?
No.
No. Here's a quote from the story. Court records show that she has filed at least 2 other lawsuits over the years. In one, she named American Airlines as a defendant, claiming that an employee's negligence led to lower back and pelvic injuries after she fell from a wheelchair. Court documents from that case note that she alleged that she suffered various back injuries from 4 earlier car accidents, an assault and battery, and a workplace incident. The other lawsuit she filed named Miami County Public Schools as a defendant. So this woman has a history of suing either institutions or people. So how would you feel if somebody said, 30 years ago, you did something, and I'm suing you today for it? To me, it's just ludicrous. How do you even defend yourself? I mean, Adams is saying, I don't know this woman. I don't recall meeting this woman. How do you defend yourself against, because she's going to say, oh yeah,
unless there's, this is such a huge he said, she said, unless there's like a videotape that of the assaults, I don't know how do you prove any of this?
Well, this almost goes back to the Supreme Court. Was it Kavanaugh? Some woman claimed that he assaulted her at a high school frat house, at a college frat house 40 years ago, or 35 years ago.
Yeah.
And again, memories fade, but you become painted by this brush, by the allegation. It's a damaging allegation. So I just hope that no other state ever does what New York State did, because this is the can of worms that you open up.
If you let the majority of these are political maneuvers,
Mhm.
unfortunately, and it also discredits those who have legitimate cases.
Right. And I think she's probably just looking for a payday. She's probably looking for somebody offers her $50,000 to go away, she'll probably go away. So anyway, it's just sad commentary on stupid laws passed by stupid politicians. All right. Remember, shortly after Trump was elected, he asked Congress for $7 billion to complete the missing sections of the U.S.-Mexico border wall. Do you remember that?
Yep. Yep.
And by the way, it wasn't to build. By the way, there are huge sections of the. If you ever watch the show To Catch a Smuggler or Contra,
Mhm.
you'll see that there are huge sections where miles and miles of existing. There are a border wall, right?
Yep.
But there were 30, 40 miles where there were big gaps, and this is where the people come through. And
Mhm.
yes, you can, with a lot of effort and ladders and hooks and grappling hooks, yes, you can get over a wall, but you're not going to get 10,000 people a day with little babies, climbing over a 30-foot high wall, right?
Mhm.
So if anyone wants to say, well, anybody can just get over a wall. Yeah. If you're young, healthy, you got the right equipment, if
Mhm.
you're 18, 19, 22 years old, yes, you can get over a wall. But 10,000 people a day are not going to get over a wall. And by the way, once they start getting the Border Patrol just rushes up, they've got cameras and they can see when these people try to come over the wall, they see it and they get there and they're, okay, you keep coming. We're going to arrest you as soon as you set foot. Anyway, so Democrats blocked his request for $7 billion to finish bordering the wall. Do you know what the current estimate is of the cost we've spent to date on the 8.4 million illegal immigrants who have entered this country since that request was blocked?
How much we spent on the people housing them
Well,
and
yeah, it's not just housing,
oh,
because to house, feed, clothe,
yeah.
medical
Oh,
care,
it's probably
educational.
close to $1 billion.
Well, so far I'm sorry, 400 billion.
Oh, wow.
400 billion. Remember, it also includes educating their children, and in some cases, even the cost of incarceration, because thousands of them have been arrested and imprisoned for committing illegal acts.
Mhm.
Well, if you divide 7 billion, if you divide 400 billion by the 7 billion, that's how you calculate return on investment. It's what you would have
Mhm.
saved by versus what you spent. You would find that the return on that investment, on that $7 billion investment, would have been in excess of 5,000%,
Yeah.
right? Because if you invested 7 and got back 14, that's 100% return
Mhm.
on your investment, right?
Yep.
So if you invest 7 and you save 400, that's a 5,000% return on investment. Seems to me spending that $7 billion would have been a great investment. Well, don't you think?
Yeah.
By the way, New York City alone is asking for 12 billion. Because when you said half a billion, I think you forgot that New York City alone is asking
Yeah.
for 12 billion. That's just one city, 12 billion,
Yeah.
just to handle their uh, costs associated with their. I think they're up to 4,000 illegal immigrants, and they want $12 billion. They're saying it's costing them $350 per day per immigrant to clothe, house, feed, medical care, and educate their kids. So if you want to use that $350 a day times 8.4 billion times 365 days a year, that's where you get that number from. Anyway, you gonna move on to dogs and their owners.
Yeah. Let's talk about my favorite subject.
All right. So there was a 71-year-old guy named Richard Moore, and he went for a hike with his 3-year-old Jack Russell Terrier. And he went out in the Colorado wilderness hiking, and apparently he suffered a heart attack and went missing. And they searched and searched and searched. And they never found him, and they never found his dog until last week, which was 72 days after he went missing. They found his Jack Russell Terrier standing guard over his dead body 72 days later. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. That's a long time.
That's a long, and I'm still wondering how this dog survived, what it ate for 72. By the way, they said the dog had lost half its weight. And of course, a Jack
Right.
Russell doesn't weigh that much to begin with.
Mhm.
Do you think your dog would stay by your dead body for
Yeah,
two and a half
we
months?
we actually a few years ago we adopted a lab from New Jersey, coincidentally. And how we came to this lab is its owner was a school teacher in Cranford. She fell and she in her bathroom cracked her head open. She did pass away, and the dog guarded her body And it wasn't until she didn't show up for work that somebody came calling to find out, where is she? Is she okay? But that dog was laying by her side and did not leave her side.
Wow.
But that was only for a few days, not
Only for a
7
few days, yeah.
days.
And I'm still, I'd love to know how this dog survived, what it ate for 2.5 months. I mean, that's literally 2.5 months. And had it been winter, when all I'm sure the dog found a creek or a stream someplace to drink water.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering, had it been, freezing weather, the dog probably would have perished too.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's it's a sad story, but it's also a remarkable story about the loyalty of a dog for its owner.
Yeah.
So, all right. All right. You want to talk about our taxpayer relief shot?
Let's have it.
Well, first of all, for those that are familiar, let's talk about what a taxpayer relief shot is. I'll let the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida, tell you what a taxpayer relief shot is. Here we go.
Right. Somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully you'll save the taxpayers money.
And again, we also have Sheriff Grady out of Polk County. And here's what Sheriff Grady
Well, we have received information in social media that some of the criminals were going to take their criminal conduct into the neighborhoods. I would tell them, if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County, because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns, and they're going to be in their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fires, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of the house with their guns.
All right, so there you've got two different sheriffs saying,
Mhm.
"Yep, you're going to save us money. If you try to commit an illegal act in my home, we urge you to shoot him." He also goes on another one to say, "Shoot him so he looks like grated cheese." I think he meant to say Swiss cheese, but anyway. So and the thought is, if you arrest a thug and after you try him with a court-appointed attorney and send him to jail for 10 years, it's $1 million hit to the taxpayers. So let's go to Philadelphia, where this guy decided to go into a really upscale high-rise apartment on Thanksgiving Eve around 7 o'clock. And here's what happened.
Home invasion. Philadelphia police say a tenant pulled the trigger, killing the suspect after he allegedly forced his way into an apartment on City Line Avenue. Thursday night, break is off on Walter Perez. The big story in Action News is breaking news. Police say a would-be burglar has been shot in the head. Now investigators are piecing together what exactly unfolded inside that apartment. Action News reporter Brianna Gallagher joins us live from the scene in Overbrook tonight. Brianna.
Yeah, Walter, well, investigators just wrapped up on scene here moments ago, and we spoke with residents who were coming and going earlier. They say they knew something was up when they got an email from the apartment complex. According to Philadelphia police, officers responded to Premier at City Line Apartments on the 6100 block of City Ave just after 7 o'clock tonight. Officials say a man in his 20s forced his way into an apartment. Soon after, police say it was the renter that shot the suspect once in the head and killed him. Residents coming back from their Thanksgiving plans thought it was strange to see the front door of the building propped open. They also received an email from property managers saying they're working with authorities regarding an unfortunate situation, and officials want to reassure that the building is safe.
I couldn't imagine somebody would have gotten, I thought maybe somebody got through the door here, but not into somebody's apartment, individual apartment, so that's kind of frightening. When you're coming in and out, people might be behind you, or, you know what I mean? And you don't close the door behind you to lock them out to make them use the fob. So I guess and there is security cameras everywhere.
Now, so far, police say they've uncovered 2 guns from inside of that apartment, and it's unclear at this time if that renter will be facing any charges. For now, we're live in Overbrook. Brianna Gallagher, Channel 6 Action News.
Well, do you think the renter's going to face any charges?
No, I think it was cleared self-defense.
Right. And by the way, it was really high. It was really upscale high security. You had to have like a fob or one of these key fob or a barcode to open the door, or a key code. So this guy just walked in behind somebody else, or somebody walked out and he walked in while the door was so much for security. Anyway, before we sign off, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, no, well, that's a big thing here, working in higher education, students living in the dorms. you know, the piggybacking. Students here are so nice and polite and always holding the door open for everybody. But you know what? If you belong in that building, you can swipe yourself into that building.
Swipe yourself into, if it's somebody you don't know, don't hold the door open for them.
Yeah, and I do a lot of home inspections, work with the dogs, and people hold the door. I'm clearly not a college student. I'm clearly an adult, and people hold the door open. I said, "You don't know me," and they're like, "But you have a dog." I have a cute dog, so I must be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all you need to get into a building. Go with a cute dog. All right. Probably a cute dog you could have stolen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Anyway, before we run out of time, I want to thank all of you who listen to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about things that I find of interest and importance. And I hope you found them as interesting and important as I did. And if so, I hope you continue to listen to this podcast in the weeks and the months to come. If you want to see some materials and story links you heard me talk about today, you can find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzee-joe.com, with Jersey being spelled Jerzee, Jerzee, jerzee-joe.com. And if you want to send me an email, just send it to joe@jerzee-joe.com. If within a comment, question, or suggested show topic, again, just joe@jerzee-joe.com. And other than that, unless you have something else to add, Producer Susan, I'll talk to you next week. Anything you want to add?
Stay warm. It's cold
Stay
out
warm.
there.
All right. Talk to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.